Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution.
Each week we interview top artists
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Mike, RAC, welcome to Origin Stories.
Thanks for having me.
You for having me too.
Of course, it's going to be a fun three-way roundtable here. I'm really excited to hear from each of you guys in the same space, in the same room. And I will say this is the first ever Origin Stories, not live stream, but Origin Stories that I am doing from the road. So I'm doing this from sunny or not so sunny Florida right now.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. So let's talk some music. Both of you guys have shared standing in the greater musical industry space. What does that space mean to you right now?
Do you want me to? I mean, I'll go first, I guess. I love the act of creation. I love creating music. The creative side to me is why I do this, and it's also like it's why I get up in the morning. It's like it's always been that way since I was like 15 years old. I've been making music. That never gets old. What gets old is sort of like the broader industry side of things, which can be a bit negative sometimes or a bit harsh. And so I'm constantly kind of battling the two. And I think I like to. I think I'm very motivated in the same way to improve that side of things. It's like I love music so much that I kind of want to make the industry side of it work. So that we can all sort of, so artists and musicians and everybody can sort of have a better time. So there's always two sides to it for me. I'm always kind of torn in between. I guess a love-hate relationship, I guess, if you want to think about it that way.
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm a creator as well, actually, but I'm a creator in the sense that I want to build new opportunities, new ways to do things within an industry. Music ended up being my place because of a personal passion. I was a huge fan of the artists and just dance music in general, actually. So within it, I kind of found my area of expertise, which is like, how do we create new opportunities for artists? How do we provide new services that maybe other people aren't doing? How do we do it in a fair and equitable way? I wanted to try something new here. Could I have worked in a different industry? Probably, because I would have wanted to do that similar process. And it's kind of what, it's exciting about actually the music industry, especially dance music, is people are really willing to try new things. And I'm sure that's, you've seen how quickly dance music has embraced NFTs and blockchain technology is because of that, that energy to try new things. So it kind of played in really well to my personal passions in innovation and creation. But within a market where people were accepting of trying these things.
Yeah, electronic music has always been sort of ahead of the curve, right? I feel like it's interesting to think about electronic music as mainstream because it is now, but there was a moment in time where it was not cool. Like there was a moment in time where everybody called it techno, like everything was techno. And it doesn't matter if you're drum and bass or or jungle or literally any genre, subgenre, like you're all techno. And I remember like even when I went to high school, like people were like electronic music. It's like, what's that? It's like just some keyboards, some stuff, and like it's really come a long way. And I think Mike, what you were saying about that makes a lot of sense because we were like the electronic world was sort of forced into that mode of innovation because they weren't accepted by the mainstream. And they ended up overtaking the mainstream because they were innovative and new to do stuff when the typical music industry was pretty backwards and slow to move. And, everybody just wanted to cater to radio. And so I don't know. I think it's like, I think it's really cool to see electronic artists embrace NFTs and also not surprising at all, right?
It's funny as I sit back here, just drawing some similarities between the two of you. You both just strike me as so intelligent and open-minded and really existing on that cutting edge of both respecting the industries as well as attempting change for the better. I heard words like fair and equitable and on and on. I'm just sitting here drawing that connection as you're both speaking. So why don't we take a step back for those who may not know about either or both of your backgrounds fully, and just go wherever you want to go. A sort of an abbreviated origin story of your points of pride. And RAC, let's start with you.
Yeah, so in 1985, no, I've been making music since I was about 15 years old. I started professionally in about I did an official remix in 2005 for a band called Bloc Party, which eventually became a big band called Bloc Party, but at the time a small band. I started RAC.
Silent Alarm days?
Predated that, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was their first EP. I ended up doing a remix for a Silent Alarm track called Helicopter, but again, just a huge influential band for me. That was my first kind of step into the music industry. But in 2007, that's really when I started RAC. I started to do remixes professionally. The first client was the Shins. Like it got picked up by Pitchfork and game on. I mean, it hasn't really stopped since then. I've been doing a lot of remixes. Eventually moved into, I did some TV and film, and then I moved into original work. Signed a major label deal, got out of that deal, and then signed an indie deal. Was very happy with that. Just finished that deal. In the process, got nominated and won a Grammy, and had a couple other nominations since then. But it's been I think I'm kind of I'm 3 albums deep, and that's sort of the focus now. So even though a lot of people know me from the remix stuff, my focus lately has definitely been more on the original side. I've really enjoyed doing that. It's sort of, again, I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's like that waking up in the morning and like feeling energized to do something. Like that's pretty true. More recently, I've been experimenting a lot with NFTs, and I've been sort of involved in the crypto space since 2017. We had the first album release on Ethereum. I guess the first collectible token, technically, it was an ERC20 though, so it predated the NFT standard. But I recently played with this project called the Tape Token, which was an attempt to essentially create a market around a scarce digital good, in this case a cassette. And for a brief, actually I think might still be up. We had the most expensive cassette tape of all time. It's just funny, really funny to me.
Fun fact.
In 2020, we beat Prince. I don't know how, but it's power of markets, I guess. And again, like I treat this as an experiment. It's like me playing around with technology and just interacting. It's just another way to interact with my fans and my community. And also created a social token called the RAC token, which is like essentially like a fan club token. And then I guess more recently the NFT stuff, just playing, started to release some NFTs in October of last year with collaborator Andres Reisinger, and broke a couple records on Super Rare, which are tiny in comparison to where the market is now, but it's kind of a fun thing. And yeah, just kind of been exploring that space, the more fine art model of music, and I guess like I treat this all as experimentation. It's like that's what drives me. I like to be, I like to play with new ideas and try new things, and that's, I guess, kind of where I'm at these days. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, it's a really well done history, and it's actually so cool to hear. I've actually known a lot about your crypto side, of course, but the music side, this is something that I've become more aware of like the depth of your history. So it's cool to hear kind of a bit more of the story there. So I've been doing the music thing for about 12 years now, Monstercat going on 10. Stumbled into the music industry as a promoter through my own shows, met some musicians, identified really quickly that there's a lot of aspects that were just broken in the music industry. Worked with them to try to solve for some of those problems, and month over month, year over year, trying to solve problems and bring new opportunities was kind of like how Monstercat continued to grow and develop. We weren't sure if it was a record label. We weren't sure if it was a media company. We weren't even sure if it was a company in the early days. but we knew that, you know, there's things that we can do better. And as a group, we're a lot stronger than we are individually. Actually, if there was like the idea of DAOs back then and social tokens, like it would have been a perfect use case, which was like early Monstercat. You know, now I guess can't go back in time. So yeah, just grew over year. We had a real focus, and we still do, in community building, creating a platform for artist development, artist discovery. We've really established ourselves in the gaming industry, especially. We've created some of the most innovative deals on the planet within the gaming space. That's led to hundreds of millions of streams and you know, moments discovered for our artists. While we've also kind of really focused on being a truly international brand, growing in South America, Eastern Europe, Asia, of course in North America. You know, we've really kind of focused on those territories. While again, always keeping in mind, like, how do we reach sustainability for musicians faster? How do we change that trope we heard when we first started, that you have to be a famous touring musician to, you know, survive off your art? That was really ingrained in my mind, in my brain, in the early days. And promoters were telling me this, and agents were telling me this. Everyone was telling me, and managers, that's the only way you're going to be able to survive as a musician. And that kind of mindset didn't sit well with me, and that really was a driving force. And, you know, how do we keep developing Monstercat in a way that, you know, I'm not going to promise that every musician we work with is suddenly going to reach sustainability, but like, let's make an attempt at it. Let's really be focused and intentional in doing so. Yeah, so that led me down a ton of different pathways of creating new opportunities for our guys. And it eventually led me down the pathway during COVID, when our musicians, and as well as every musician on the planet, was really hurting. Times were tough. Times are tough. I can't even say we're tough. We're still in not a great place in the music industry. So, you know, learning about this new technology that can create better connections between artists and super fans, and do it in an equitable way, in a way that they can actually generate royalties on not only just the music side, but also the digital creator, digital artist side, got me really excited. You know, I told this to Dre earlier today. When we first stumbled into the space, we really were just looking to find a way to take the amazing album art and animations that we were creating with our artists and be able to recoup the cost of those album art and animation while creating a small royalty stream that could be generated. You know, we didn't think that we'd be talking like, this is an industry where people could do millions of dollars. I was like, if we can make $500 to $1,500, like, we're in a great place for artists. And I still actually believe that to this day. I think we need to get to a place where NFTs are affordable and there aren't massive barriers of entry for everybody. I think there's a time and a place for the, you know, really high priced NFTs, but I think there's a time and a place for the, you know, low priced NFTs as well. So yeah, just trying to figure this out one day at a time and bring those opportunities to our artists. And now when I say artists, I don't just mean our musicians. I mean, you know, our animators, our illustrators, our designers, a whole new, you know, group of people that we'd worked with forever, but I never realized that we could actually be generating them royalties as well.
Right. It's like the birth of like an entire new industry. I like to throw out this quote a lot because it really resonated with me. But there's this artist named Renderfruit. I think she's from Argentina, I think. And she tweeted something that she's a visual artist, and she said, I'm merging my personal work folder with my work folder. So the idea being that those two are connected now. You're no longer just doing client work. You're doing work that you really care about, and you're actually able to like make a living from it. And I think that's like a pretty profound change, right? And you know, I love to see it. You know, I think I've always been, you know, on the musician side where, you know, it's like, okay, we're on a tour, we're on a strict budget, very limited budget, and we're just trying to like squeeze out like as many visuals out of these designers as much as possible, because we're not really making that much income, and you know, we're just trying to like, you know, make their time worth it, but also like not lose money on a tour. So the fact that they're able to literally just create something that they care about and they value, and then be able to sell that and to collectors that people want this. I mean, I think it's like pretty profound. And Mike, what you were saying about that royalty that's going to come back for the rest of your life. I mean, it's incredible. Like that has never existed in any art form. So the fact that you know, I think everybody loves a good primary sale, like a big headline, like made so and so $1 million, but really I think the true value is in the long term, you know, resale life cycle of these things. And not to say that that's going to be true for every single piece of art, but that's not true in the typical art world. You know, that's not true there. So why would it be here? I think you know, it's sort of like a whole nother career path for people, and maybe it's supplementary. You know, maybe it is just maybe hitting those lower tiers or something that's much more affordable and accessible, and focusing on that. Or maybe you really go for the fine art model and just go, you know, the gallery, you know, just show, like, get in the big collections and just like hope that you continue to sustain yourself that way. So I don't know. I think my favorite thing about all of this so far is that it's completely undefined. Like, we have no idea what's happening. Like we're defining it, you know, and I think that's awesome. How many opportunities like that do you get in your life where you get to define an entire industry, like good practices? And, you know, for example, like speaking of the secondary royalty is generally gravitated towards about 10%. Like, that was something that just happened naturally. Like, it wasn't, I've seen platforms that were doing 20, and then the secondary sales were kind of, they weren't happening because there was a bit of friction. So now, like, you know, that has sort of solidified at least a little bit, you know, the 10 to 15% rate. So that's interesting. You know, that sort of happened on its own, in a hive mind kind of way, which I think is kind of interesting. And like, nobody really knows like how to do a proper NFT drop. It's sort of like you go to Nifty, and then you go to Clubhouse, and then you go on Discord, and then you go on, you know, a crypto Twitter. I don't know. There's all kinds of like interesting angles. Like there's some PR stuff you can do, but it's up in the air, and I kind of love that. It feels like a leveling of the playing field. Like, you have like real opportunity. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention real quick is sort of like, just to give this sort of some broader context of COVID. You know, the music industry has been unhealthy for many, many years, and I think we've been over relying on touring as a source of income. Because, Mike, what you were saying about, like, that was the story. Is like you you know, you tour, and that's how you make it work, you know. And COVID really, like, just cut that out completely, like, from overnight. And like, I announced a tour on March 11th, 2020, you know, the day that NBA got canceled. Like, it was like, well, I guess I'm not going to tour. Granted, I was a little less reliant on touring income, but, you know, I definitely had to adjust. So to me, it really shined a light on how unsustainable a lot of the recording side of the music industry, how those costs. I mean, it's a little bit better on an indie label, but especially if you're on a major label, I mean, it's very difficult to make a living. So you know, this really showed the cracks in the system, and NFTs just happened to be there to come and rescue a lot of musicians, and it's been kind of cool to see that be an outlet for people. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. But
I think the interesting shift that's occurring, though, is I'm hearing a lot more in the music community, the realization and the conversation around the collector. And I think that's a really important thing that maybe people coming from the art world and the fine art world had a lot more of an understanding of, like, what a collector is and what a collector means to their career. I think the music industry is now also learning what that means, and being really intentional in creating, you know, releases and models that benefit or at least lean towards benefiting the collector. And I think that that's happening slowly, but it's happening, and the discussion is there, which is important, because I don't think the music industry will be sustainable in the NFT world either if we come into this saying that everything needs to be $5,000 and they're open editions that 1 million people can buy. Like, that's not right. And it's been great that, you know, we've been accepted by a large amount of the, you know, artists who've come from fine art or digital art, and they've kind of opened up and been like, this is what we've learned from our, you know, 10, 20 years of our career. the music industry needs to take note. They need to listen, and they need to do this right, because it won't be that all those goals we had about creating sustainability for artists, so they're not relying on only touring and they're not, out of commission during COVID. If we don't heed those warnings, then we're going to be back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really interesting to kind of feel that out.
Let's hone in on two things in this discussion: pricing, and since we've naturally found our way into NFTs, right? It happened over the course of both of your journeys, and so let's touch on two things: pricing and secondary markets. And let's start with pricing. So, Mike, you mentioned lower priced NFTs. I mean, this is just hits me in the face as something that will happen, has to happen, makes total sense. I've used the sports analogy as, the NFT will be the ticket, the NFT will be the game program, the NFT will be the jersey. Let's take that over to music. I mean, the NFT can be so many things. It could be the poster, it could be the sticker, it could be any low priced, typically low priced in the real world, piece of merchandise or fan art or what have you. I feel like that just needs to happen.
Yeah, well, we don't know what can be an NFT yet. Again, that's what Dre was saying. We're still figuring it out. Like a stem of a song could be a low priced NFT. We don't really know what is possible. A signature, a ticket stub, all these things that it could be. And I think people are trying to figure out what is a healthy way to do it. Even in album art, people build and create incredible album art, but that album art was already created to match a song, to fit with an album. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't beautiful art that connects to a fan. So does that album art have to be a $2,000 NFT? Probably not. Like, you've already made the album art, it's for your album, it's tied to a moment in time. That could be something that's a bit more fairly priced, attached to maybe the single. I think what the challenge is, of course, and everybody knows this, is that gas prices are high. It's a huge barrier of entry for anyone to mint an NFT. It's a massive barrier of entry for new collectors to come in the space, especially music fans. They don't know how to set up a MetaMask wallet and buy their first ETH. And we're doing our best to teach and be leaders and mentors in the space, but it is a huge learning curve. And then they come in and they're realizing that on some of these platforms, it's like, wait, I have to spend money just to place a bid or just to verify my account. Like, I had no idea that I'd have to do this. So it's just too many barriers of entry right now. So I think there are going to be solutions. I think there's going to be layer 2 solutions. I think there's going to be new protocols for badge minting that are going to reduce costs. We are going to get to a point where NFTs don't have to be thousands of dollars, and that will make it accessible to a global audience of people, and hopefully be the entry point into the blockchain world for these new fans. Because that's the dream at the end of the day. Like, we all clearly believe in blockchain technology.
Right.
How do we bring this to the hundreds of millions of people and have them really engage with it?
And think when a wallet is nothing more than an app on a phone, that's when this whole industry has made it. That's really when it just permeates everything. When it's just like opening your phone, popping open an app and going and doing your business. When you can access your wallet that easily and that seamlessly with lower or negligible gas, I mean, yeah, then things open up wildly.
Yeah.
Mike and I were kind of talking about this earlier. It's interesting because I think the NFT thing blew up too quick, or blew up a lot faster than any of us expected.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of playing around with this stuff. I was certainly happy to make a little bit of money on it, but it was also like, okay, this is interesting. It's like it's another avenue for me. I didn't foresee the barrage of the music industry coming in like this, like SNL skits about NFTs. Like, what is going on? Like, this is the most insane thing I've ever lived through. Maybe just perhaps because it was the right time, right place, whatever. But we've been even on our end, just sort of like helping people through it and like talking to people. But this has been crazy. Like I've never seen anything like it. Like the amount of interest in this. And again, maybe it's that sort of life raft kind of thing where it's like, oh my God, some income. Let's go for it. Maybe that's part of it. But also, I think people are the current models. I think we're just kind of shaky enough that with COVID and literally everything happening, everybody's like, oh my God, this is it. Let's just go in. And to your point about the gas costs and all of that, of course, it's like a huge barrier. And that's sort of what I mean is like, I don't think we were ready. Like, I don't think the industry was ready for it. But with that said, I'm glad that like what better way to be forced to adapt than like have literally everybody, knocking at your door being like, I want in, let's do this, and being forced to scale. And I mean, fortunately, there's a lot of L2s and other chains and like all this other stuff that's happening. I mean, I think NFTs are definitely going multi-chain at this point. Or that term is even weird because it's all going to be interconnected anyway. In my view, it's sort of like this siloed version of the internet, I think, is going to go away. So, I just find it. I just find it really fascinating. I think like, we're just sort of still just catching up to the amount of interest, but Mike, to your point, I think we'll get to the mass audience. It's just the growing pains are really showing right now, the gas costs being one of them. But I mean, it's like that mixed with DeFi and like all this other stuff that's happening. It's not just NFTs, but I think it's just the explosion of crypto in general, bull market, all of those things combined lead to this where, it's too popular,
Yeah, well, we're all committed to working through the issues. And I hear it from the platforms. I hear it from the community. I hear it from the thought leaders. Like, people recognize that there are problems and they're trying to find solutions, but it's not going to be an overnight thing. We might go through another crypto winter as well. And during that time period, like, that's when a lot of these problems are going to get solved. And hopefully we'll come back out of it stronger than we were before with new knowledge and new opportunity.
Yeah, like, I mean, just to draw parallels since I've been in it since 2017, I witnessed the beginning of that bull market and that eventual crash. And actually, the reason I stayed interested in all this stuff is because all my developer friends and people that worked in the industry, they were like heads down, just working and fixing stuff. They sort of took it as an opportunity to really excel. And so even though, we've been saying that, like, we've been catching up, but like so much infrastructure was developed in those bear market years that, that even as janky as some of these things can be now, they're so much better than they were even a couple of years ago. So we have come a long ways, I think, to give people some credit.
And if we step back to the macro too, I remain, no matter shaky, no matter if eventually we go into a crypto winter or anything, I just remain such a believer in what NFTs are. I think that if you pull back and you look at the overview of the Renaissance, I go in this, it's probably a horrible analogy with a lot of holes in between, but I always say, the origins of art, right? When cave paintings were a thing, you couldn't transport those. There was no marketplace, right? Then fast forward, I know I'm skipping steps and butchering this, but you have canvas and you have cardboard and these things that are transportable and you can use them to paint on and you can create different things on them. And all of a sudden this wonderful marketplace develops around this art and it travels all over the world. It gets hung on walls everywhere. You fast forward to the internet era. Digital artists have been around for a long time. And what I've been trying to say is they've been valuable for a long time, but they're not perceived as such by the general public because you look all over the place. You look here on Instagram, it's free, right? But it's not. It contributes to a tens of billions of dollar company, right? For free, exactly. You look over here, there's ESPN, right? You see these sports photographs. They're free, right? Because you just go on ESPN and see it. No, they're contracted by ESPN. And they're either white labeled or with these small credit bylines or, whatever. And on and on and on down all these examples that are free, but not at all. Now, all of a sudden, we go to the canvas, which is the NFT. And the world rushes in because I think that Renaissance value proposition is so overwhelmingly strong. And yeah, a lot of infrastructure now has to be built up overnight to support what I think is an extreme value proposition.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I like to think about this. I think about this a lot. This is like the NFT format, if you want to think about it that way. Like I go back to the like I think there's actually a clear trajectory from like from the early internet where so okay, like I grew up in the Napster era where that was a pretty drastic change for the music industry where from one day to the next suddenly the unit, like how we attribute or how we value things used to be based on a unit, and now that is no longer the case when you can infinitely copy something, right? So how do you value something that can be infinitely copyable? Like, you can't, because that doesn't work. Like, so it doesn't, like, it sort of created this weird market with streaming, and where we're sort of gating content, and we're finding subscription service, we're finding these models to like price this stuff, and it's still kind of a mass market game, you know, where you get, I think, like $44,000 for a million plays. Like, we literally count them in millions for it to even be meaningful to have a conversation about it. So I think that is sort of starting to crack, and this is not just music. I think it's all forms of media. I mean, you know, it's all free, but you're really selling your data. You know, there's all these. I feel like the free model of the internet was sort of the bootstrapping phase. You know, where we're all getting onboarded. We're starting to develop all this infrastructure. Okay, now we're all here. But if you think about it, like nothing in the real world is free. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why is it free on the internet? You know, it's not. The truth is, it's not. So, you know, but I think there's a real case for NFTs here, because it finally has that scarcity element, even if it's artificial. I don't care. It's finally being able to play with that scarcity model that enables us to create actual markets around this, and now we can find our true value. You know, I guess that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And like, I'm really excited to see what that means for music, because we've been playing this mass market game for 20 years, and really arguably before that. And what does it mean for an artist to have a really niche audience, a really core audience that supports you? You know, I think you make better art, you know, because you're not catering to, you're not trying to compete with Drake, you know, you're competing, you know, you're making music for that audience that specifically loves dark industrial techno or whatever, you know. Like, it could be I think it's like the subgenres will flourish in this new environment. So I'm excited. I think it's just sort of going to be, you know, it's like it really changes things, you know. Really, it's another lever to play with. Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
But what specifically? He went over quite a bit there.
Yeah.
Pick your spot.
I am a fan of dark industrial techno, as if
yes,
you're asking. But what part specifically?
Just pick a spot and run with it. That was a brilliant overview.
Yeah. I want to talk about where he was speaking about like the niche audiences, like having a direct connection. I think that's a really, you know, critical thing that isn't really discussed enough in NFTs, is that you don't need tens of thousands of fans. You could have 100 dedicated fans and you've reached artist sustainability. Like that, I don't know anywhere else where that can occur. Like even 100 fans buying your apparel, I don't think you can reach sustainability after, you know, product development, manufacturing, shipping, duties, refunds, like whatever might happen. That can happen with NFTs. And I think that's, you know, that really encourages this direct to fan relationship as well, which hopefully should create these like superstars, but not like, they don't need to be these global superstars. You know, they can have the success and revenue and you know, of these traditional global superstars, but you know, they might be happy at their home in some small town where they maybe only have 5,000 fans, and they would be considered a global superstar, or they'd be considered a superstar due to their revenue. And I don't know, I love the concept of being more yourself and having your audience and not caring as much about like what's the sound of the month or the year or whatever. It's like, this is my sound and my audience, like maybe they only like me because I make this weird sound that they like. That's great. You know, I want to encourage that more, that we might actually get better music on a global level if more people are comfortable making something that it's only made for a small subset of people versus like what's made for mass consumption to get within, you know, playlists on a Spotify platform or a music listening platform, you know?
I call that Spotify core. Like, it's a genre. It's like it's like the Spotify playlist genre. It's definitely a thing. It's the 200,000 monthly listeners, but you can't fill up a room in LA. You know, it's that kind of it's more music that's made for playlisting. It's kind of a fascinating phenomena. I've always been really impressed with Monstercat, because I feel like you guys have always been. I mean, it's something that you said about like being yourself. That's something that I harp on a lot. Like, I think it's really important as an artist. But I also think that you guys as a label and as an organization have always been sort of doing your own thing. Like, I mean, even I feel like you guys are one of the first to do YouTube really earnestly, and like all of this stuff. I feel like it's sort of been like there's the label model, then there's the Monstercat model. I don't know. I mean, there's some connections there, but like I feel like you guys do your own thing, and I think that served you well, right? Because I think you even have an audience for the label as well. You know, it's sort of like a brand on its own.
Well, I appreciate that. I think what you speak about is we just embodied our personal experiences and our personal personalities. Even if it's interesting, I'm actually having this conversation on an NFT, show like this, because I might actually say something. I don't remember if I've really spoken much in music interviews, but like the whole concept around the multi-genre approach to Monstercat came from the fact that the founders of Monstercat, myself and my partner, were multi-genre electronic music fans who went to a dubstep show one night, a trance show the night after, a techno show at the after hours after that. We kind of had this mindset that we didn't understand why you had to only be a fan of one thing. And strangely, when we launched the label, like you were told you had to plant your flag as like, you're either the electro label or you're the dubstep label or you're the house label. You don't really get a say in the matter. And we're like, that didn't make any sense to me. So a lot of like the way we've developed our brand, our music, our artists that we choose to work with, it comes from like just our own personal experiences within the dance music community. And as people, as in general, as we've grown up and our tastes matured, or our love of different types of art or video gaming or culture, whatever it might be, it's come out within the label. A lot of it wasn't based upon majority of it wasn't based upon like, what is the trend right now, or what's the stat we have to follow to hit, or, because it didn't resonate with us personally. The challenge with that is that we're getting older. Older is still like we're going in our 30s. It's not like we're getting. It's just like we're in our 30s. It's like we're no longer the spring 22-year-olds going to raves 5 times a week.
I've heard the term elder millennial. That's I don't know if I fall into that yet, but yeah.
Especially with NFTs, though, it took a lot of my personal passions and combined them all into one area. The idea of collecting digital scarce goods or collecting or earning is nothing new to me. I've been a video gamer my entire life. I've been a World of Warcraft raider. I've played RuneScape most of my life. I've still, like, in the last 5 years, got back into playing old school RuneScape again. Like, the game is made off of like trying to, collect scarce goods. The difference was there was never, that was play money. Now you can actually have people value it with tokens that are, can be converted to real money. I don't know. It's like that on top of my love of music, my love of arts. And I'm not going to lie, I was definitely more heavily in the knowledge of music than knowledge of digital art and fine art. But that's also kind of the beauty of what this space has done, is it opened my eyes up to stuff that I didn't know about. I didn't recognize. I didn't know the people that I now follow and engage with on a daily basis. And in some of these cases, I should have. They've been doing their thing for 10 years and they're the top of the top. Just our paths never crossed. So I have a lot of appreciation that it brought my gamer side, my entrepreneur side, my music side, my, and now burgeoning art side all into one place. So it's just been a cool discovery along the way.
Did you think in 2020 that you'd be collecting this much art, or
not a chance? Like, I think, it's interesting. The wall behind me, it's still bare in my apartment because I want to find a solution to display this art in a.
Oh, you and me both, Mike.
Yeah, like this is a decently sized wall behind me. I'm looking for like a great display. I want to come home every day and have like a bunch of different frames around my home where the art changes every day. I have no idea what I'm going to come home to, what art's going to be on my wall. That I could have never done with buying paintings. Like I would have had I don't know if I would have been able to make my mind up of what paintings I wanted to have. But two, I wouldn't be able to experience something new and refreshing like on the regular. And I'm going to be able to do that with the art that I've collected. And I want other people to experience that. So hopefully we can solve for the display issue and soon, like now.
I think we will. I mean, I know there's a lot of people doing it, but also just even the virtual display, you know, people are like, well, what do you do with it? And it's like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Like that's the least of my concerns right now. Like, you know, there's so many apps being developed in different metaverses and things happening that will continue to develop. Like that's the least of my concerns. You know, yeah. we'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
And we're seeing better solutions now, right? We're seeing better solutions. See Atomic coming out with sort of the next level frame that makes it easier to access the art that you own and do different things with it. I know that, I believe, a fresh entrant into that side of the market recently. Over on the display side, kind of circumventing the metaverse land, buy, and build phase is RareRooms coming in with, hey, here's how you display pieces of art quickly, easily, you know, base room design or souped up room designs that have artist input. They're doing great. I believe, you know, other companies are coming in and we're going to get there. But Mike, it's so funny you mentioned that. It's been on my mind for a while now. I'm waiting for the perfect solution.
I think then my partner as well, she'll be more into this once I can start having them up on the walls instead of like ending our date nights because I have to go home for like buying some NFT.
Yeah, or like, how much did you spend on that?
That's it.
We don't talk about that.
It's best to leave that to the side. It's best to leave that to the side. Guys, let's go into secondary market. I don't want to lose that thread. That was the second piece that I really wanted to pull out because I think it's so valuable and so important. And actually use an example of this. Mike, your Monstercat drop, the Constellation drop. I mean, you chose to embody what secondary market health and explosion could look like. And then of course, with those royalties baked in, for every transaction. So you sold packs in that Monstercat drop that happened in January 27th for 50 cents a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the decision behind pricing that low, and then what, if anything, you expected and or learned with the secondary market explosion.
Yeah, that was a great one because, you know, at that time I was still really learning about the space and sitting in a lot of clubhouses and talking to our community, the Monstercat community. And I realized that that conversation from before about barrier of entry was, even with like a great platform like Nifty, who's got, you know, credit card on ramp, there still was a real barrier of entry. So my thought process was, you know, I've got a great audience of fans. How do we make it affordable and accessible for them? And that was really why we made that decision. It was like, can we create a way in for our fans to dabble and discover? I heard about some fans who rolled like the 1% chance and were selling their NFT for $3,000 when they paid 50 cents. And I'm like, that's a great kind of first experience for them. And everyone else is they're all setting the price in the secondary market the way they see fit. So we watched it happen. And it went like, it was crazy to see because the amount, I guess with packs, they all get distributed at the same time. So it's not like minting where like, you don't know, it takes a bit for everyone to receive it, but the packs, everybody all of a sudden rushed and they received their 50-cent NFTs. So to see this like activity feed just explode, and you could see the prices were like trying to figure themselves out. And like one was doing really well, but the other one wasn't doing quite as well. It was just like, it got our fans so excited about the process. If anything, I wish I could have done more because I think there were a lot of fans who didn't get a chance to be a part of it.
But I was going to mention, like, I had a similar experience where I was fortunate enough to get one of the $1 Beeples, like one of the first ones, I think in November of 2020, and I haven't sold it. I'm going to hang on to it for a long time. And I'm going to love Beeple forever because it's just like, I you know, it's kind of an amazing thing to offer to people in a way. Like, I mean, I think he knew deep down that obviously it was worth more than $1, but like, I don't think he expected that this was the trajectory of it, of course. But it has a really interesting dynamic. And I actually, sometimes when I work with, I have an agency and sometimes I work with clients and explaining how to enter this space, like we always suggest is like, you know, a real earnest way to do something is actually just price it really low, get your community involved, get them used to this technology, who cares about the primary? Like it'll find its value. If you believe in what you're doing, it'll be fine. Like you'll make your money. Like, you know, don't worry so much about that. And you'll those people that bought that $1.50, whatever, like they'll love you forever, because I mean, it's like, I realize it's sort of a financial thing, but it's like you're creating value for people, like, and especially in a pandemic, people appreciate that, you know.
This is such an important point, and one that I think a lot of people are, that we're all learning simultaneously, but I also think that it's a point that platforms are beginning to learn as well. And it's that balance between primary and secondary market, and how important the health of the secondary market is to the perception, and how perception sometimes is everything. And if a primary market is priced high, like the opposite of a 50-cent pack, which it's every dollar is being squeezed out of the primary market, how it, in my eyes at least, quite literally sets up failure in the perceived failure in the secondary market. Not failure of the artist, not failure of the art, but failure of perception, which then in the most horrible of ways can get passed back onto the artist and the art later. And I think it's a function of the cryptocurrency market that we're in. The numbers are in our face. It's just part of it right now. Probably will be for quite some time, and necessary reality.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I suspect a lot of the, you know, this will be cyclical, like many other things, you know, in crypto. I don't think it'll be as, I think everybody's like, oh, it's going to crash to zero. It's like, no, it's not. Especially not with the art market, because this is different. Like, okay, so I've been like preaching about this stuff for a while now. Nobody cared. Like nobody, like in the music industry, we're like, whatever, blockchain, yeah, cool. And now suddenly, you know, it's like once you get the art side of it involved, and like, now people want a piece of it. Now people get it. You know, I think there were you kind of needed to go through that process. But I suspect that even though the markets are quite liquid, that you know, I think given that royalty, I think not many people are willing to sell at a loss. I think that it has some more stickiness to it. So I think the markets have already cooled off to some extent, you know. You're still seeing like Edward Snowden make 5 million, although that was kind of specific, you know. I mean, Pac obviously did extraordinarily well, and but then you're seeing, you know, like in Calvin Harris, I think made it a little over 1 million, which is, you know, compared to like Grimes a month earlier making 6 million. It's like, I think Calvin Harris is bigger, but like, you know, the market will be fluctuating quite a bit. But I don't think we're going to go to zero or anything like that. I think it's sort of just going to be cyclical. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but
Mike, how do you feel about it?
I definitely think there's like a settlement that's occurring. It's like we're the fans, the community are, you know, have come in, they're trying things, they're figuring out their level of comfort, their pricing models that they're willing to support, the value that they might have for an artist. You know, it's not as much of a free for all. I don't think we're going to see as many $1 million drops. I think that we're looking at a time where it's more about value and creating value for the secondary market. Like it's actually my primary thought when we develop these projects. It's like, how do we make this fair?
Mike, no pun intended, right? It's your primary thought. I see how you did that.
That was completely by accident.
I didn't catch that one, but yeah, that's right.
Oh, Christ. Yeah, I almost said it again. It's a driving force of the conversation. Is like, is this fair? Are our collectors going to see that we didn't take them for a ride? Because they don't come back, and we're not in this with our artists and with our brand. We're not in this for like a 6-month period. Like, I see this as a new opportunity for all of our musicians. And that, you know, all the issues we have with the space, and that all the problems that people are highlighting, we're all committed to solving them. And I think that's like the really critical thing I want to drive home, and is that we hear the concerns. We hear that, you know, concerns on the way things can be priced. We hear the concerns around the environmental concerns. We hear about you know, how artists present themselves, like, and engage in the community. We hear all of that. So I'm hoping that other people, especially in the music industry, are also hearing and seeing these things and being intentional about how they're going to be a part of the space going forward, or else they will be a 6-month flash in the pan. So yeah, I want to be, I am optimistic about the future, but I also implore everybody who's a part of this to really stop, look at what you're doing, look at the community, talk to your collectors, and start making decisions that, you know, have taken all the stakeholders into account.
Yeah, I like that. And just to add 2 cents, my macro thesis remains this. I think that there are 2 categories of artists, and I'm looping everything in, you know, whether those artists be musicians, celebrities, influencers, whoever they may be, but 2 categories that end up making it through this supply rush, right? The rush of noise that is upon us right now and a bit of uncertainty out there. I think it's the blue chippers, and I don't think everyone has control over whether he, she, or they is earmarked as a blue chipper. I think it's just something that happens. I mean, granted, good decisions and good art makes it way more likely that someone is deemed a blue chipper. But again, let's just say that's out of a personal control. I think what is within every artist's control is to be a community builder. So my macro thesis is blue chippers and community builders. And to go to what you guys have been saying, I'm nodding my head here because it's the 50 fans, the 100 fans that may make everything. And if you are empowering those fans, providing access to those fans, providing utility to those fans, even just some semblance of a long-term plan, a bit of transparency and a relationship with those fans, I just think so many artists can win no matter what happens in the short term.
And I think the interesting thing for, like, okay, so people ask me, like, young artists are like, okay, how do I break into this? How do I become an artist? Like, in the truth is I have no idea. I have no idea like what the correct answer is in 2021. Definitely not. But what I will say is, like, NFTs offer a real interesting, like, if you want to think about it from a risk to reward ratio, you know, do you want to enter the music space from the Spotify side and really, you know, I mean, you're competing on a pretty crowded stage, you know, or do you want to enter from the visual art NFT side, with music or something like that? I think it seems like the financial reward for even a minor success is so much better, that you can survive and thrive on a relatively small group of people. Kind of what you're saying, like, I mean, 100 would be a dream, right? But if you have, you know, even 5 or 6 people that just really like your work, I mean, what more do you need? You know, you know, and then you can start to expand from there. And I suspect there's probably like a sweet spot, you know, where, because not everybody's a collector, not everybody has those kinds of funds either. So this is something I talked to my collaborator a lot, like Andres Reisinger, somebody I collaborate with a lot. We're very strategic about this. It's like about how much we release, because we don't want to flood the market. We want to create interesting works, and we want to place them in the right places, you know, and we want to find sort of a core group of people that I think want to support us, you know, and at that scale that we'd like to hit. That's just one model, but then you have the sort of the more affordable models. Like if you have a large audience that, especially music fans, I mean, music fans really don't like have the funds to pay $600 for an open edition every time you do it. You know what I mean? That's pretty hefty. So especially if they get burned on it, you know. So being able to make something like on the other end of the spectrum, something that's accessible to them, I think is like pretty important, so they feel included. And maybe, you know, maybe 1 or 2 of those does have the means to sort of become like a bigger collector. I don't know. So there's all these different angles, and it's just really interesting to see how this will progress versus what I call the old model, you know, like the Spotify model, I guess.
It's a fascinating future. Hey guys, want to shake it up a little bit? Want to play a game?
Sure, let's do it.
The lightning round. So here's the deal. I'm going to throw some topics on the table. It's designed to be fast takes, hot takes. If either of you gets super passionate about something and just wants to hit time out and go, more than welcome to. You can break the rules. So I'm going to throw some topics at both or individually. Here we go. Topic number 1 for both of you, but Mike first: digital art. First thing that comes to mind.
Opportunity, open concept. There's no box. You pave your own pathway. Yourself. Those are the things that come out.
Perfect. That's what we're going for. RAC,
Yeah,
how about you?
I think it's just really frictionless. You know, people get hung up on the format. It's like, oh, it's a JPEG, it's a GIF. It's like, you're missing the point. Like it's digital art. People have been making digital art for a long time. This is nothing new. It's just now that you can package it in a certain way where it's actually monetizable. You know, so I think it's cool.
Topic number 2 for RAC first, Ethereum.
I see it as the next the infrastructure for the future of the internet, and I realize it's a bit of a bold claim, but I really see it. I've been okay. If I just take a quick moment, I won't do this for all of them. There's a clear progression for me from okay, Napster gets shut down because it's a centralized service. Okay, then we move to BitTorrent. BitTorrent can't be shut down because it's decentralized, but there's no way to exchange value. So it just becomes this kind of marketplace for files that doesn't have, it's not really a marketplace, it's just file sharing, whatever. And the fact that people do it out of the goodness of their heart is amazing. So then you move to Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin is essentially the same idea, but you have, value. You can exchange value. So then, but you can't really do anything. It's just one application, it's currency. So okay, then we get to Ethereum, and Ethereum to me is the sort of culmination of like 30 years of just finally getting to this sort of base layer of programmability where you can create different apps and they run on this global essentially chain, and you can sort of build like logic. Like my whole idea is that you can, especially on the infrastructure side, you can essentially replace all the music infrastructure, distribution, streaming, all that. You can replace that all with a blockchain. You can replace it with code, like open source software. So to me, like when I look at like a lot of the incumbents, good luck competing with zero, good luck competing with code. So I see that as sort of I mean, we're a ways away from that, but like I see this sort of like an amazing sort of opportunity to get on the ground level and really build something amazing. Okay.
Well said. Mike, Ethereum.
Yep. Powers the internet, Web 3.0, funds my NFT art addiction.
Mike, for you, last piece of NFT art that stopped you in your tracks.
No, you can't.
The literal last. No one's competing with each other. You're just like the literal last chronological moment where you stopped and stared at something.
Well, the last moment was the collaboration between Fvckrender and Victor Mosquera. The piece that both of us purchased yesterday on secondary market. I looked at it and we were like, yep.
I was hoping you'd go there.
Yep. I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna spend a pretty penny on purchasing. And I know not only do I love the work, but I'm a massive fan of both the artists. I have a huge collection from both of them. Pretty much all of their pieces actually. So there's some moments where you just see something and you're like, I'll do what it takes. If I have to go sell some of my tokens, I'll sell my tokens. I'm going to acquire that.
Exactly. I love it. I'm on the same page. RAC, question just for you. Going to go a slightly different direction here. What's the last piece of NFT art that you saw and thought, why don't more people know about this?
Oh, so I'm okay. I need to say that I'm a little biased because I work with this guy, but there's an artist named Metsa. He, I actually, if I take a little bit of credit, I sort of convinced him to join this whole fun new thing. So he had been making, he's a musician. We actually sent him to my label, but he had been making visual art for a long time. So he's sort of a visual, he was like the perfect person for this because he was a visual artist and a musician. And he'd been essentially making NFTs, but putting them on Instagram. And it was like, hey, you should just do this on Super Rare. Like, do this. And he's been successful, but it's not like on the scale that I think he should be because he's making pretty amazing stuff. So shout out to Metsa.
That's great. We'll link him in Twitter show notes.
If I want to add to that real quick, if you want to, some of the people don't know, or I'm not going to say someone specific, but if you go to grants.art and go to the Genesis grant exhibition, there are so many people in there that I am just floored by the talent that more people should know. So I'm going to plug that to go check out on grants.art.
Love it. Love it. We'll link to that as well. And it's a good reference, some good people behind that. All right, let's go to Mike. Mike, Vancouver.
Lifestyle, great sushi, home, burgeoning hub of NFTs.
It's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
RAC, Portland.
I'd say good, amazing coffee, great nature. It's surprisingly a small city for how well known it is. We have our own TV show. A quick anecdote: I was on tour in Russia, of all places, and the guy picked me up at the airport, and he's like, "So, Portlandia," and it's like that was kind of a fun like worldwide moment for me. It's like, oh my god, how do you know about this? Yeah, I don't know. I like that it's a little bit quieter. It's a little bit outside of the bubble of LA and New York. You know, I imagine sort of. I mean, Vancouver is much bigger, obviously, but maybe experienced a little bit of the same thing in Vancouver. But yeah, I love it here.
RAC, back to you. Arc4G.
Oh, I love him. I actually just did a new piece with him. No, he's fascinating because he has a bit of a physical, you know, issue, and he has a hard time working on stuff. So the fact that he's able to do what he does, like with that limitation, is absolutely incredible, and even makes it even more amazing. The other thing I'll mention about working with him is that he's so fast. Like we're like on Twitter DMs. I'll be like, hey, what about this? And he like within 10 minutes, they'll send me like a render of like this idea already fully formed. I'm like, how do you do that? Like everybody else I work with takes like a week to get back to, you know, to do something. So crazy talented. I love his aesthetic. Yeah, I think he's ahead of the game.
I think Arc4G is a downright magician. That's the word. Just a magician. Always experimenting and trying things. Yeah, super, like way fast, but in a qualitative way. Weirdly, you know, how could you be fast and so good at the same time? Doesn't make any sense. And then the fun thing, RAC, I own 3 of your 10s. By the way.
No, oh wow, okay. Oh wait, so you're a 10 whale. Gotcha.
I've cornered the market on 10s. I had to drop that in there at some point. That drop to me remains historical in
thank you.
In visual and sound. So yeah, nice work on that one.
It's just real quick on that one. It's really interesting because that predated a little bit of the boom. And like at the time I was like obviously very stoked about it, but it's one of the ones that has appreciated, I think, the most financially for me. So I'm always like happy to see that sort of able to add value for people. Yeah.
For Mike, Mark Juicetra.
He's a brother to me. He's like we've worked a lot of different projects together, music industry, gaming industry. Now in the blockchain space. Smart guy, great project manager, loyal as all can be. Grateful to have him as part of the team.
Love it. Great guy. For both of you, the skill set could be within art, could be within music, could be within life, just something random. The skill set that if you could matrix style pop a chip in your brain, totally painless, no complications or consequences, and you would immediately possess that skill set and be able to infuse it with everything else that you each do so well, what would it be? And we'll start with Mike.
Oh no, I was hoping.
Yeah, I was like, please don't say me.
I want to say like digital art, but I'm afraid that it might take away, like if it becomes my thing, you know, like I almost don't want to be good at it.
Okay, but wait, if you go to digital art, go with a more specific nuance of digital art.
Okay.
For example, like
3D
illustration,
modeling, 3D modeling,
there you go.
animation, 3D animation. Yeah.
Love it. RAC.
Okay, so this one might sound a little bit boring, but I'm gonna go with time management because I'm really bad at that, and I want to do so much, and I am pretty fast at working on music and doing all this stuff, but I would love to be able to. I just want to do more. Like I always want to do more. I want to be. I like the challenge. I like the you know the act of creation. It's sort of addicting. And but by the way, to Mike's point about like I almost said visual art as well, but I'm like I kind of just like being on the other side of that. I like being just a fan and enjoying it. It so in a former life, I almost went. At one point in time, I was going to be either a graphic designer or a musician. Obviously, ended up being a musician, but so I've always had an eye for it, and I really enjoy it. I like it, but in a way, I'm kind of glad that I'm not doing that, and that I get to be sort of more of a curator and work with other people, fantastic people that know what they're doing. There's music is enough for me, you know.
And yeah, and all the fantastic collaborators that you have, it just it brings it to life in a really, really special way.
It's really fun to work with a bunch of people, you know, it's great.
Yeah. Guys, you win the lightning round. I mean, that was great. Nice involvement from each of you. And so let's close the lightning round out with this. And let's do a bit of a lightning round for the people, being that you're both here. What question on the spot would you pose to someone who may be listening to this podcast, who knows each of you, who knows both of you very well, who maybe is learning about you today? But what question would you pose to a listener right now to consider in their own NFT journey? And let's start with RAC on the spot.
I think like I think about like value a lot because this gets thrown around a lot. Like I think about, you know, like my favorite albums, and maybe I'll sort of broaden it to art in general. Like what is the value of something to you? Because like I think about this a lot in the context of music. Because like my favorite albums, I listen to them maybe once a week, you know, maybe more, and you know that value is not really being reflected in that transaction, you know. So you know, maybe if they put out a special edition vinyl or something like that, maybe then they'll capture some of that value. But I think like people sometimes get turned off by some of these exorbitant numbers. But like if you think about it, like what I guess the question is like, what do you value? And I don't mean purely financially, but like, you know, what do you value, and like how do you what's your relationship with that, you know? Like how, if you care about something, if you care about a piece of art so much, like how do you value it? So I would sort of question, it's more of a broader question of like you know, your relationship with these cultural artifacts or whatever, you know. So that's pretty broad, but yeah, that's my answer.
It's a good question. It's a thought provoker for sure. And Mike, what's your question?
Why are you doing this? You know, like be intentional. Like in your mind, if your goal is to make enough money to buy a house tomorrow, fine. At least you're honest with yourself. If your goal is to, you know, you want to develop within the art community and develop a dedicated collector space that you're going to work with forever, fine. Be intentional about that. I sometimes feel like I hear people's like, I want to do an NFT, and I'm like, but why?
Right. Yeah.
RAC, why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? I'm doing this truly because because I like the challenge. I like the creativity of it. I like that it's new. I like that we're defining it. It's the most excited I've been about my own career in like many years. I've been sort of, I keep shitting on Spotify, but like I was just stuck in this like kind of monotonous, like it felt like, you know, that 1984 Apple ad. Like I felt like one of the drones, like just like sitting there, okay, musician, gonna go on tour, gonna do this thing, and this is all I do, and like man, I hope they put me on the playlist, you know. And then suddenly this whole thing opens up, and you know, I have actually upward mobility, you know. For example, like we're talking to festivals next year. I'm actually in a much better standing, and it has nothing to do with my Spotify sales. You know, has absolutely nothing to do with that. Has to do with streaming, has to do with Patreon, it's all these other things that it's like a whole new world of we call the creator economy. So I'm just like excited, I guess.
Mike, what does value mean to you?
I see where this is going. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm happy you see it. What does value mean to me? God, value is it's like a feeling you get. It's like, does it speak to you? Does it feel like it was worth it to you? To me, it's like it's very quickly apparent to me when something feels like there's value behind it. And I don't think it's always mathematical. I know it's not always mathematical or statistics based. Those things come into play. But I'd say there's a lot of emotions that also come into play of if it's valuable to me.
I love that you took it there. I agree with you. I tend to be a mathematical person, but I also absolutely believe that intuitive and somewhat emotive feel to that value equation is important. All right. The lightning round's over. No more tricks. I promise it's all over. And so guys, let's wrap it with this. Let me ask each of you, give the mini teas. What can we expect next? If you're ready to say anything about what lies ahead, and then please then add where people can find you and any socials you may want to pop in people's minds. And Mike, let's lead with you.
Trying to think of what I'm comfortable to state. There will be another.
I'll take your lead. Yeah.
There will be another Monstercat drop in May. I'm not gonna give the date. Yeah, there will be another Monstercat drop in May, and if people have experienced the format and we've talked a lot about value for our collectors. I think we'll see some things come back that we've done in the past, and I think we're going to bring in some collaborators to do things entirely new that we've never done before. But we've put a lot of thought and intention behind, why we're doing our next drop. And I guess that's about it. There's some other things going on, but I don't want to open Pandora's box yet, especially because I think my team will kill me. Like, what did you say?
Yeah, so I on my end, I have a couple of projects in the works. Maybe one that I can speak about more publicly at the moment is I'm doing a project with Async, where we're doing programmable music. So, where it's layered music. So where you can own. I mean, I think Mike even mentioned it, like owning a stem of a song. It's kind of the same idea. But the idea being that by owning the stem, you actually get to pick different arrangement. So that's interesting for just on a creative level, because what that means is that, by the way, when we say stem, just for non-music people, it's like a part of the song. So like the guitars or something like that. And then the idea being that the song at the top is always ever changing, because the owners of the individual layers can make choices that change the top layer. And again, that to me, that's fascinating on a creative level, because that means the song is ever changing and ever flowing, and will never be the same. I mean, maybe it'll go through every possible permutation of that, but it's unlikely. So that's kind of it's kind of the same thing. Like I don't want to jump the gun on a couple other actually really exciting projects, but I'll be kind of vague about it and say that there's definitely a lot on the pipeline, and I think we might surprise some people. So I'm stoked about that.
Those are two power teasers, though. I like where you both went. I mean, that's a very, very innovative idea surrounding async and music in general, the permutations there. And then Mike, on your end, I mean, everyone obviously overwhelmingly loved and appreciated the first drop. So to know that there's another one around the corner with some similarities and yet some differences and evolutions, also very, very exciting. Guys, lead with the top place, that whether it's a web address, whether it's a social that you want to leave in people's minds. RAC.
Yeah, just RAC. It's led me, that username is so annoying to get that it's led me to be early adopter on every platform, and that has served me well. So just RAC on every platform.
Perfect. Mike.
Darlington on every platform. Heads up, we at Monstercat tend to not leak things or give too much away in advance. So my socials will not be the place to get all of the alpha. Generally, when people learn about our projects, it's thought out and that it's going across in multiple different ways. So my socials are really a home to discuss the music industry, you know, artists, NFTs, hearing people's like thoughts around the spaces. But yeah, generally when we're ready for people to know about our projects, everybody will know.
Love it. Guys, Mike, RAC, thank you so much. This has been a fun origin stories. I appreciate the conversation. I think there's a lot of gems in there, both within NFTs, music industry, the hybridization, where this thing is all going. A lot of utility in this one, to use a popular term in this space.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us. Appreciate you.
All right, we will talk to you both soon. That's a wrap.
Yep.
We did it.